And let's call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Superintendent, is there any additional communications?
There's no additional communications at this time.
Perfect. I just want to remind people that if you have questions, please put them in the chat. And we'll get to you in order.
Member Wilkins?
Yes.
Hey, before we get started, could I just make a really quick comment? This is the second meeting that the board is not following public meeting law with Oregon Attorney General Public Records and Meetings Manual under Directive Section D2 with allowing space for the public to attend in person. So I just want to remind the board that we need to be doing that, and I'll be attending remotely until we are able to do so. Thank you.
So for clarification, we have, because of the new COVID stuff and the virtual, et cetera, legal counsel has said we are creating access for the public to comment, to hear all reports, all parts of the session by attending virtually. We are meeting that. I think the jury is still out because of COVID and the hybrid models that have gone on at this time. And I'll just put it on the record, as a district, we're still continuing to refine the library to both meet COVID protocols and have effective technology for genuine engagement by the public. So just some comments regarding that. Member De La Grange's comments.
So Brian, was that just your opinion that we're not following the law?
Well, no, I was, we got an email from the city editor at the Courier, so I was just kind of reiterating their stance because I'm not an expert, and I would defer to them since they're more knowledgeable in this area than I am.
So it is possible we're not actually violating the law.
It's possible.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
but I don't know.
And Brian, can I ask, you said we received an email? Is that we as a board?
Yeah, it looks like we're all on that, and it was sent yesterday.
Okay. So, good, moving on.
Yep.
I'm gonna, moving on to 3.0 consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the October 26th board agenda and the October 12th board draft minutes.
Second that motion.
Roll call vote or
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
any discussion? Oh, hearing none.
Member De La Grange,
Yes.
Member Neville,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richardson.
Yes.
All right, passes unanimously. On to 4.0 reports. Superintendent?
Yeah, so I am going to share my screen, do my best to, and turn it over to Kristen Hosfeld to just give a brief summary of what we're doing to reach out to the public.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, Grants Pass School Board. As you know, one of our communication goals includes communicating with our community to increase public understanding of who we are as Grants Pass School District 7 and what's happening in our schools. Just to go back a little bit, before my time here, we actually did publish an occasional insert that was placed inside of another publication. And this year we decided to try something different and actually mail a newsletter directly to Grants Pass homes rather than having it inside another publication, which of course, you know, we need to have them open the publication and then open our insert. So we did a little different approach this year. In your packet, and as I see Superintendent Kolb has it up on the screen, this is the fall 2021 edition of Grants Pass Glimpse, a look at what's happening in Grants Pass School District 7. It has either arrived or is arriving this week to more than 30,000 homes in Grants Pass. As you can see, it's a 4-page color newsletter highlighting programs, projects, and current events in our schools, with a call to action at the end to invite people to visit our website and social media. I would just add that much of what's included in the newsletter is similar to items that we share all year round on the district website, our social media channels, as well as with local media. Following the print release, which again is supposed to hit your mailboxes this week if it hasn't already, we will be releasing it digitally via an opt-in email distribution list so that it can be accessed in multiple languages, as well as digitally and in people's inboxes. Information on how folks can subscribe to that will be forthcoming on our Facebook page and website. Any questions?
This is Member Wilkins. I think that it's a great way to build relationships with our community, and thank you for making that happen.
My pleasure. It was a team effort.
Everybody for making it.
Very nice, and I got mine in the mail today.
Glad to hear it. Thanks, Member Brunel.
Nothing from the Zoom crowd?
Tanya will let us know at that time if there is somebody prepared. So when we get to that agenda item, she's just monitored constantly.
Oh, I was thinking of Brian.
Oh.
But yes.
Sorry.
No, I forget there's others out there.
Thanks, Cassie.
Yeah, always Brian. 5.0, board reports and special concerns. Anybody have any?
Now just go through 5.1 and then
5.1.
after 5.3, any additional.
So 5.1, OSBA elections. You got in your packet a couple of candidates. Anybody have any?
Superintendent Cole, we need to decide this tonight, which one?
Yeah, we need to elect, or this board needs to choose a representative for position 5 to submit to OSBA for our district's vote regarding our region representation.
And just for clarification, there's 2 candidates, correct?
That is correct.
I would nominate Ray Williams from Prospect.
I would nominate Sarah Crawford from Talent.
Those are the 2 candidates. So I'm not the expert on Robert's rules. So we have 2 motions placed out there.
Need a second.
There would need to be a second for any other nominations or for a nomination or a nomination of the district abstain. That is
Oh, I
an
guess
option.
it does say abstain or no action.
Member DeLaGrange will second the nomination for Sarah Crawford.
Okay. Hearing a motion and a second, is there discussion?
Well, I looked at, I have not met that I am aware of either of the candidates, although I probably have met Ray Williams since he's been on the board for 6 years. So I've probably at least seen him. But I appreciated his comments and responses. His background in education and professional group membership, I thought were helpful. I thought perhaps that Sarah's position wasn't quite as strong and perhaps had a more limited agenda of what she was advocating for.
Anything else? All right, well, here, so we'll call a vote, moved and seconded, discussion, call for a vote.
Member De La Grange,
Yes.
Member Neville,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
No.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richardson.
I'm going to say I'm not sure what we're doing.
We're voting on Sarah Crawford as the candidate, or the candidate for the regional member,
Well, you made the motion,
but it died for lack of second.
like he said.
I nominated and it was seconded by
Oh,
Brian.
we need a second, sorry.
Oh, it was
It
second.
was seconded by Brian De La
So
Grange.
she
Oh, by Brian,
nominated
yes.
Ray. There was another nomination by Todd. Todd's motion was
It
seconded.
was Brian.
There was discussion. Now it's a roll call to approve Ray because that's the motion that was seconded.
No, this is a roll call. to
No, so-
approve
Sarah
Sarah.
Approve Sarah.
Sarah.
The motion to approve Ray died without a second.
Correct.
Does that,
No.
So
Oh, waiting on Brian.
No, Brian voted yes.
Brian voted
So
yes.
motion carries 3-2.
Who's on first?
So we have 3-2 out of, we have quorum, so that motion does carry.
Carrie. Yeah.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay. 5.2, property committee report.
We had a property committee meeting that covered a number of topics related to recommending that the board have a workshop related to that.
I believe.
I can,
They should all be green.
yes.
Okay, we're, no feedback?
No.
Okay, we should be back live.
I want to repeat that. Member Richardson.
Okay, we got messages that you can hear us now.
Okay, so the property committee meeting, we had a property committee meeting, discussed some issues related to our air quality upgrades and some additional budgetary items we had for ESSER funds and other funds that have come to the district outside our normal budgetary process. And we felt that the issues involved for making those decisions would, or not making those decisions, the amount of information that we would have to bring back to the board, it would be better for the board to have a workshop. So we're recommending the full board have a workshop on the property issues on those subjects. And that's a property committee report.
Okay.
This is Brian. Do we need to like take action to schedule that meeting next month? How's that work?
Well, when we get to that part of our agenda, we can talk about a meeting date for that.
That would be my suggestion, since there may be a number of other board workshops necessary as in the board availability and prioritizing necessary workshops that would be held towards the end of the meeting as other topics are gone through.
Okay. So, superintendent search.
Yeah, so I will, and just shared with the board as because I won't be the superintendent beyond the 21-22 school year. Process to search for a replacement. I provided the board with a sample RFP for your discussion, but ultimately search for a superintendent is the board's job and the board's role. So I've attempted to provide as many resources as possible and then allowed the board chair, in this case the vice chair, to begin facilitating a discussion around what that process might look like.
Did everybody have a chance to kind of peruse through?
I've got a couple questions. The first one is, was this document created from scratch, or was this modeled off something that another district has used?
It was modeled off of another district's search from, I believe it was 2019.
Okay, and I assume,
It was also vetted by Bill Ransom, District's legal counsel, to be sufficient and complete and have the necessary legal components within it as well.
great, that was my next question. The one concern I have is that it says here proposals due Wednesday, November 10th, which is only 2 weeks from now. And so I'm a little concerned that timeline may not be long enough to get a sufficient number of bids, but otherwise I think it looks fine.
Yeah, just some comments on that, Brian. Just when I looked at the prior district's proposal, it was very similar. There are identified search firms who basically have this pre-packaged in proposal format. And their turnaround time was very similar. They actually started their process nearly a month earlier than what is proposed with this one. And so looking at everything that may need to be accomplished, we believe it's not outside of the realm of possibilities. And because there is a board meeting on November 9th, the board could move to extend if there isn't sufficient proposals received.
Very good, thanks.
Yep.
And is my understanding that if we agree, this would go out as early as tomorrow, correct? Is that what I saw somewhere in the
Correct. It will
language?
be issued tomorrow by the board secretary to identified agencies. She's reached out to a number of other school districts who've done recent searches to collect the information. I provided the board with 4 different agencies that have engaged for another local school district previously and what those sample RFPs may look like. And so, yes, they would be issued directly to those agencies tomorrow.
And then they would have the 2 weeks, more or less, before we decide if we need more time for an extension.
Correct.
I'm looking for a question I had. I wrote down something about subcommittee question mark, and I'm trying to find it here again. When I went through the first time, I couldn't find it the second
It was
time.
probably in the email that I sent you with trying to present options to the board. So some districts have established a subcommittee of the board to screen these and make a recommendation to the board. It could be that each board member would take the time to read each one of them and then determine at an upcoming board meeting. Special meeting is probably what we need to call, not a workshop, a special meeting, because you have to make a decision as a board. And so it is up to the board on your process on how you would want to proceed, screen and appoint, vote and appoint, recommend, vote and appoint. And so the concept of subcommittee is not new. It's always about your capacity to commit to time. And that is something that needs to be considered when the board's going to be adding extra meetings, potentially for a property committee report, subcommittees, and maybe workshops in the future for the superintendent search process.
So could that possibly look like let's say we decide to go with the subcommittee that would whittle down, so to speak, the final applicants, at which point all of us would be involved?
So some districts have said, we will determine based on the merits of what you submitted. Some districts said, we're going to narrow it down to these 2 or 3, and then we're going to conduct an interview with you as an agency. So again, this process is really up to the board.
Discretionary for us?
Yes,
Copy.
very discretionary.
Thank you.
And should there be any legal guidance needed, I can be an extension of the board to seek that out for you.
Just to be clear, any subcommittee would not be doing any sort of decision-making or narrowing down of the pool. It would be for, information condensing purposes.
I just have to say that with our board being very split on a number of issues, I would be uncomfortable having a subcommittee. Or if there was a subcommittee, I would definitely want to be on it and would want to read every application all along the way.
Just for historical purposes, can I ask how that happened last time? I wasn't here. Was there a subcommittee?
No.
No, so it was full board.
And there was not a search agency concurrent to do it. So it was just post and fill, like we do with all of our other positions.
So we have 4 places we're going to send this out. Would it be allowable for board members to submit additional firms?
Absolutely. We'll send it to as many as possible. But we are just aware of those 4 right now, and Tanya's awaiting more information from the districts she's reached out to. But if there are other search agencies or representatives that the board is aware of, please let Tanya know.
Thank you.
So this isn't under action items, but we do need to.
It's not under action items. Didn't know which direction the board would want to take. If the board wants to approve this RFP and maybe even approve a process, Debbie feels more comfortable that every board member review every application and then facilitated a discussion at a special board meeting or at the board meeting following November 10th.
And I would share a similar concern as Member Brownell stated.
Yeah.
That, and perhaps we don't need to decide at this point whether or not we go subcommittee or all involved in the process, as much as getting it out to request for proposal.
That would be priority number 1 is get it out, request for proposal. I believe at this point, the board can say, if there was a motion to be made, just all board members be provided the proposals for discussion and determination at a future board meeting date, based on what I'm hearing.
One idea would be to put it on our agenda at our next meeting to give us the time to think about that process and not have to make that hard, fast decision now, just thinking out loud.
But I believe that we do need to approve or not
The
on the
RFP.
next step.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes.
I would agree with you.
And then we'll take on
yes,
The how.
subcommittee or not, the how part.
correct.
Hopefully they help us with the how part as well.
Can we approve that tonight even though it's not under action items?
Yes.
Yes, the board may raise a motion to any item that's on the agenda as related to any item on the agenda. That was unclear previously and has been since cleared. And so I think it's in the board's best interest, so.
I think we,
So looking at action items that we know of versus those that we need to make an action on,
Yes,
it gives us,
action has arisen due to circumstances.
Copy.
Correct.
thank you.
so I would entertain a motion.
That's your call, board vice chair.
That sounded as a question. I would entertain a motion.
Member DeLagrange moves to approve the RFP be sent out as written.
Second. Member Richardson, second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Can we vote, Tanya?
Member DeLagrange,
Yes.
Member Neville,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes,
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richardson.
Yes.
Okay, it's passed. Let's move on to 6.0, superintendent reports.
Sure, let me pull it up for you.
is there a reason that there's someone on the Zoom? That
Oh.
is on there?
Oh, yes, sorry. I'm new at this.
Me too.
So Indra would like to speak to 5.3. So let me. I'm asking her to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I just wanted to address, not the superintendent, but I read the notes from the last minute about a potential assistant superintendent being hired. And I just wanted to say, although it doesn't look like it's part of this, I would really be hesitant to support something like that. I think especially in this year when we're looking at many of our students needing help getting up to grade level where they are, I would be hesitant to hire any administrators, extra middle management people. I think any hire should go directly to positions that are directly dealing with children and getting them up to speed in academics. So I just wanted to address that. And then just quickly, Member DeLagrange mentioned public participation. The Zoom is just not the same. I had to get off. I mean, things happen. I had to get off and get back on. I could have lost my place. You're having school with kids in classrooms. I don't know the setup because nobody's allowed in there, but I'm assuming it's a classroom full of kids. And yet you can't seem to manage to have a room large enough for public to come in and have public input in person. The Zoom is just not the same. So I would really love to see the public be able to get back in there to the board meetings and participate fully. And the last thing is some of the things, I read the minutes from the last meeting, and I just want to readdress the public being able to make comments at the beginning of the board meetings, because many times things that are discussed aren't on the agenda and they come up and you can't make any comment to it. And at the next board meeting, you're searching, where can I speak to this topic in the agenda? And there's nowhere to speak to it. So I really would love to see, you really want parents, students, community members to participate in the board meetings and get our feedback. I would really love to see us be able to make comments prior to the meeting and not just on the agenda. Thank you very much.
Member Wilkins, I'll make a quick comment. Just with regards to public comment, it seems like the process should be that we are accepting public comment before we make the vote on the topic, because people being able to make public comment after we voted is kind of pointless. Like, it's already done. So there's no point in necessarily hearing the comment after we voted on a topic. So I would float the idea that maybe just as a process piece, maybe we should be doing the public comment before we vote on any particular topic. Thank you.
Yes. I think that was a mistake or an accident, wasn't intentional. So moving to 6.1.
can I make a point under board report and special concern?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for your.
Yep.
Well, I just thought I would mention that I participated in a forum called Courageous Conversations with RCC Diversity Committee, which includes a couple of RCC members and 3 different ministers or pastors in the community. And the topic today, this is a monthly thing, and today's topic was a man who is working with some members of the community to start a conversation on sundowners cities. And Grants Pass is a sundowner city in that back in 60 years ago, it was illegal for a Black person to remain in town overnight. And he's worked with Coos Bay, where the only man who was known to be lynched was lynched in Coos Bay. And they gathered members of the community and raised a plaque and a historical kind of reconciliation process there. There were 300 people watching the lynching in 1902 and 600 people watching the dedication of this plaque. This happened, I believe, last year. So anyway, I thought that was interesting and helpful, and I thought perhaps Director Bloomquist would be interested in participating in those conversations. And also, other members might be interested also. They have had a number of these conversations on different topics, and I believe they're still available through RCC if you can find the right linkage, which I tried briefly and wasn't successful, but I will persevere. And then I just know that this has been a very hard year for enrollment kind of statistics, but I might mention that I do miss seeing who's enrolled in which class and how many kinds of data. So I'm hopeful that we'll get that back sometime this year.
Yes, the enrollment report we have had, so I believe it was on prior agendas. Are you talking about the report that
Yes,
shows by school, by teacher,
Yes,
number of
yes,
kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll make sure that is there. I thought it did previously, but we'll confirm that. So, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Any other board reports and special concerns? Okay. Well, Gary.
So Lois McMillan has been an inspiration at urging people to read historical source documents, and Superintendent Cole will show my historical document
Right now.
So my board report tonight's going to be about the Nuremberg trials after World War II, which I was reading, which had an interesting section. I've heard a lot of discussion related to being on the wrong side of history in the community for a number of different topics that we have going on. So in this particular case, that's all I have to share from there.
Thank you. It's 905 pages.
So I'm just gonna read a small section of that related to the medical experimentation that went on. So because of that, they came up with 10 rules for medical experimentation. I'm just going to read part of number 1, which says, the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. This means that the person involved should have the legal capacity to give consent, should be situated as to be able to exercise free power of choice without the intervention of any element of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or other ulterior form of constraint or coercion, and should have sufficient knowledge and comprehension of the elements of the subject matter involved as to enable him to make an understanding and enlightened decision. And I'm going to skip a section of that, but it finishes that, again, this is just point number 1. The duty and responsibility for ascertaining the quality of consent rests upon each individual who initiates, directs, or engages in the experiment. It is a personal duty and the responsibility which may not be delegated to another with impunity. And as I read through those rules, apparently those rules have been sort of codified into a medical thing related to consent, but for that I would have to defer to Chair Nelson as to how much of that is actually the case. But I just thought that was an interesting point that came out of World War II. And so that's your history lesson for today.
Any other board reports and special concerns? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to 6.0, superintendent report.
Sure. So I am sharing on my screen. So basically, the statute requires that we share with the board whether or not we're in compliance with Division 22 standards. Division 22 standards are all of the Oregon administrative rules for school operations and administration. And so I'm here to share that report with you so we can then report to ODE that we have indeed done that part of the piece and sharing with the board and the public that we are in compliance with all standards of Division 22. This year, I'm trying to make sure it's up on the screen, there are 2 standards that have been waived for the 2021 school year. And those are both assessment related, the assessment of the essential skills that we have talked about previously, and the kindergarten readiness assessment, which is administered at the beginning of the year every year. And those were waived by the Oregon Department of Ed, Board of Education for this school year. But outside of that, we are in full compliance if the board approves action item 7.1, approval of healthy and safe schools plan. Director Ely completed this plan working directly with ODE last week. They have basically informally said, yep, this is going to meet all of the criteria we need for you as a district. It just needs to be approved by the board as well. And so we are in full compliance pending the board's approval of the Healthy and Safe Schools plan.
We talked before, and I'm always, pleased as punch when we have a full in compliance report, and I appreciate that. Work on making sure that all this happens, and it represents a lot of work besides just the words in compliance, and I truly appreciate that.
Yeah, most of these OARs are represented in board policy, so there's a lot of cross checks and balances that we do to make sure we have those policies in place that do indeed meet these requirements, and we have procedures that are in compliance as well. So a lot of checks and balances go into making sure we're meeting these standards.
Question.
And I guess to follow up on that, I fully understand the assessment skills waiver. I just wondered, we have talked in the past about, here's the state and the national regulations. Here's District 7, what we think is important kind of things also. And I just wondered where the kindergarten assessment, I have a kindergarten granddaughter.
So it does give us good information on the front end about where are our kids. I can turn it over to Director Zatola to talk about kindergarten readiness assessment and the value that we find in it, and also at the same time, are there things that we say, this isn't a super high priority because we work really hard to get to know our kids on the front end anyway. Go ahead, Susan.
So actually, we as a district do not find much value at all in the state kindergarten assessment. We don't get any of those results until midwinter, late winter, at which time, especially of all students, kinders are completely different people by the time we get the results. So we have all of our own in-house screeners and assessment tools that we use, and the expertise of our kindergarten teachers is far more valuable than what we get from that particular tool. It's really it's a tool that the state is using to gauge their early learning system, or the early learning system, because it's given right at the beginning of the school year. And so they're gathering data to evaluate early learning in Oregon. And then because there's such a delay in the results, it doesn't actually mean anything for us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Moving on to 7.0 action items. 7.1 approval of healthy and safe schools plan.
So Director Ely, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, I'm going to put it up on the screen, and I'll let you briefly share a quick summary, oral summary of that document and its purpose.
Okay. So the main purpose of the Healthy and Safe Schools plan is just to let the community know that we are complying with all of the requirements for testing for lead in the water, for doing radon testing, and for having our integrated pest management program up to date and staff trained to be responsible for that program. And so we have done all of those. And as Kirk mentioned, I was working last week quite a bit with ODE on getting the rest of this plan ready. So we posted our lead in the water testing results on the website, as we have also done with our radon testing results. And so the plan goes through and tells you when our next testing period for lead in the water is. That's what this one is for. And so that's a 6-year schedule that we are on. And so we kind of split it up between the schools for the 2025 fiscal year and the 2026 fiscal year, so that we're not doing those all at the same time. We also have a person who's certified through the EPA for lead paint. That is our maintenance supervisor. And then the same for asbestos. Right now, I am the person who manages our AHERA program. And I'm having Nate Olson, who's our maintenance supervisor, and Anthony Perry, who is our risk management supervisor. They are both going to be going to a class up in Portland. It's a week-long class, and so it's a pretty big commitment on that asbestos certification, but they're going to be doing that. And Nate Olson is our primary on integrated pest management. I have been the secondary, but I am getting Anthony up to speed on that program as well, so he can be our secondary on our integrated pest management. We have a method for monitoring carbon monoxide. Right now, those tests are not required to be posted. We're only required to post our radon and lead in the water testing. And so that is pretty much the Healthy and Safe Schools plan. It To me, and this is just my opinion of having done safety in District 7 for a very long time, I feel like the Healthy and Safe Schools plan should be expanded by ODE to include really all of the things that we monitor for health and safety, which is indoor air quality, our active dangerous intruder programs, our fire safety, our, how we handle bomb threats, how we handle accidents on the playground, our first aid program. Health and safety, to me, encompasses a lot more than just the items on here. And I have asked ODE about that, if they would at some point expand this program to really cover everything that we have to manage and monitor. If you read the OARs, we have to have the response plan in place for fire, all kinds of weather related issues for, like I mentioned, active assailant or dangerous intruder, earthquake safety, lots of different things. So I think this plan should be expanded, but right now this is what ODE wants the Healthy and Safe Schools plan to look like.
For all that work, Sherry, and all the knowledge that you carry in your head.
You bet.
Could you write it down on a notebook?
We actually have a big binder that has all of it in it.
Oh. Okay, so there's no action on that,
No, we
correct?
do need an action.
We do need it.
By the board to approve.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve.
Member Neville motions to approve the Healthy and Safe Schools plan as stated.
I'll second.
Hearing a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion. I need to make eye contact with Brian. It's very stressful when I can't.
He'll try now.
Yeah. So hearing no discussion, move to a roll call vote.
Hold on just a second. Okay. Brian DeLagrange,
Yes.
Member Neville,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richardson.
Yes.
Okay. And it passes.
Thank you, Sherry.
Moving forward, 8.0, future meeting dates and suggested agenda items. We do need to add a property workshop. The question is where?
Oh, boy.
Got the second meeting in October is
So
well, that's the 16th, isn't it?
second Tuesday, we have a regular board meeting. Third Tuesday is the DEMSP, the second round of workshops of what we're doing tonight. Then we don't have a board meeting currently, a second meeting scheduled for November, but looking at the number of workshops and topics that the board may want to engage in and what you want to accomplish and when are important.
How does everybody feel about a second meeting in November? Any comment?
I won't be here. I could probably attend by Zoom.
Would we have it on the 23rd or on the 30th?
Anybody have conflicts in November? Or a preference, 23rd or the 30th?
Based on the timeline of the RFP, I would encourage the board to consider a special board meeting, not a workshop, but a special board meeting to select and identify a executive search agency.
And the deadline for that was
There isn't, so the proposed, and again, these are flexible dates that
Right.
list the month. So not a specific date.
So if we're getting the proposals back by the 10th, could we just tack on a special meeting before the workshop on the, I believe it was the 16th for that?
Board workshop, so that's the scholarship training on the 16th. So,
Just do it like we're doing tonight, just have an hour before that. I would think would be sufficient time to have discussion around those.
okay, for the superintendent search,
Well, to pick an entity to help us.
Correct.
Do we know how many we anticipate receiving? I mean, I know that we saw some examples from some of the other districts, but I don't know how many.
Tanya has reached out to other school districts who have conducted searches to find out if there are any besides the 4 that we've identified initially. And so it's very likely we would get those 4 to respond. At least 2 of them have already reached out, offering their services. So we would definitely anticipate at least 2, probably 4, potentially more.
okay, so adding a special meeting before the November 16th meeting. About the property committee workshop, do we add that before or after the 16th?
So how long do would people expect that report, that property consideration to last? Sherry, have an idea?
I'm going to go that it take at least 30 minutes to give the information, and then I'm sure there's going to be quite a bit of discussion from the board, so at least an hour. But see what Sherry says.
I would totally agree with what Gary just said. I think that you guys are going to have quite a few things that you need to talk about.
And what's the time frame on you needing information from us, or permission or authorization?
That's kind of open-ended, Debbie. It depends on the priorities that you come to when you have that meeting. So, you know, anything that we decide on that we need to do won't obviously be able to be accomplished until at least next summer. And so, you know, we have a few months window of time before we need to start getting like bids out on the street. And so there's just a lot to talk about. We have a lot of priorities in the district from you know, looking at facilities and the HVAC systems and some of the other things that we had earlier identified use of the ESSER funds for. And then also talking about the potential loss of state school fund revenue because of our declining enrollment. So kind of a lot of intermixed potential priorities in that. So not a hard and fast date that we need an answer by, Debbie.
Okay, thank you.
So if we were to meet on the 16th and talk about the superintendent search, and then on the 30th, talk about the property, would that be acceptable? That means every other week we're meeting in November.
Yeah, prior to.
I prefer to do that rather than go into December.
Sherry, are you okay with pushing property to the 30th?
Yep, that's fine.
All right. Last call for objections.
And you need an hour, 2 hours
And
for property?
Well,
1 hour.
It'll be open.
it would just be a board meeting, and that would be the main topic of discussion, I think.
And then adding the superintendent search at the 4 o'clock hour on the 16th.
Or, yes, we could talk to Kristen about moving to 6 and do 4 to 6 superintendent search, 6 to 9. The DMSB workshop.
5 to 6 and 6 to 7.
Yeah, 5 to 6, 6.
I like how you're thinking there,
Yeah.
rather than 4 o'clock for my purposes and possibly others.
All right. Good. Okay, so future meeting dates, board meeting Tuesday, November 9th at 5, board workshop Tuesday, November 16th, special meeting instead of board workshop at 4,
5.
No, at 5.
oh, at 5, sorry. Board meeting December 14th at
And we're adding November 30th.
and November 30th, yep, sorry, meeting date, November 30th for property workshop.
And is this going to be okay with the OSBA person on the board workshop to
Push it an hour.
push it an hour?
Most likely, Kristen's been very flexible. We'll also ask her tonight as
She'll be
Meeting
here
with
in
her.
5 minutes.
see her in a couple minutes.
Okay.
Okay. 9.0, adjourn regular session. Adjourn, okay.
So folks are out there tuning out. There's a separate link for the board workshop. I let my directors know that they don't need to be in attendance. This is a meeting of the board with some professional development.
Hey, Scott.